Imagine, if you will, a struggling young couple just barely making ends meet who had decided that no matter what wiser heads had said about wait till you are financially stable, they wanted to get married, and they did. These two 20-year-olds were not through with college. They were both still in college. They both had part-time jobs, and they were still happy that they had made that decision. Now, these two folks, Jim and Adela, they had a little flat, a little apartment, and it was on the second story of one of those old houses, those old Victorian houses that were so beautiful in their day, near the campus where they went to school. Now, this building was dilapidated now. The concrete steps were crumbling. The paint was peeling off the sides of the building. When you stepped into a dark foyer, you saw the different mailboxes, and on one was Jim's name, Jim and Della's name. And it had the full name of both of them: James Dillingham Young III, Della Ann Wright Young. But it seemed like they were trying to shrink just a little bit. They might appear a bit too boastful and arrogant. If you walk up the stairs, there you find their apartment, poorly furnished, but their very own space. Now, Jim, he worked for UPS. This was back in the late 60s. So we don't have cell phones, we don't have internet and all of that. But back in the 60s, and we definitely had UPS, though. I can certainly remember that. And so he worked for UPS driving a delivery truck. Della, she was a work-study student at school, and she was also a part-time waitress. They got by, but barely. They had to scrimp and save, ever since they got married just 5 months before. Della dreamed of giving Jim a Christmas present on their very first Christmas that he would treasure the rest of his life, that he would remember for the rest of his life. She knew exactly what she wanted to get him, too. He had a pocket watch, a beautiful gold pocket watch that had been passed down from his great-grandfather to his grandfather to his father, and now was his. But he didn't have a fob chain for it. He just had a leather strap to keep from losing it as he kept it in his pocket. And she thought, if I could just get him a fob chain, the perfect antique chain, well, then he could proudly put that watch down in his vest or in a pocket and pull it out with that beautiful chain attached to show everyone. So she saved as best she could. She went and she got coupons. She cut the coupons out of the newspaper. She used green stamps. Maybe you heard of those. She went and she got the 40% off meat at the grocer. They ate a lot of beans and rice, and she even had to break down and occasionally cook some Kraft macaroni and cheese. But she was able to save quite a bit of money. But right around Thanksgiving, both of them got the flu. Of course, they didn't have health insurance, so they had to pay for the doctor bills. They had to pay for the medicine. They had to take time off from work. There went Della's savings, gone. So just from Thanksgiving to Christmas Eve was the only amount of time she had to save. She waited until Christmas Eve day and thought, it's now or not. I'm not going to be able to get a gift. She took out all of her money that she had saved. She even checked down between the cushions in the sofa to see if there's any that had fallen down, pockets of coats. And what she had was a $11.87. Now, we couldn't buy much with that today, but it really wasn't much then either, not for what she wanted to get, an antique gold bob chain. She was downcast. What could she do? And then it came to her. She went over to her jewelry box. She opened it up and she pulled out a ring, a gold ring. It was beautiful, solid gold, 18 karat. It had belonged to her grandmother, and her grandmother had given it to her. It had little diamonds on either side of the center setting, but the only problem with that is the setting was gone. The ruby that was supposed to be in there had been lost, so she couldn't wear it as much as she'd like. It's worthless to me, but maybe I can get a little bit for it. So she put it in her purse. She grabbed her coat, her scarf, and down those dark, dank steps to the outside she went. It was a cold, blustery day. She walked 2 blocks to the bus, got on the bus, rode it down to a street called East Grand. Now, on East Grand, she knew there were a number of pawn shops. She thought, this is my only chance. Maybe I can get enough money to get him a nice gift with that. And so when she got off the bus, she looked right there in front of her was the first pawn shop. I've never been in a pawn shop, she thought. It looked really dingy. Windows were dirty. Everything in the display case had dust on it. She went in. As soon as her eyes adjusted to the dim lighting in there, she saw in front of her, just a little ways away, must have been the proprietor. And he was a heavy man with a beer belly and a cigar, a bulbous nose. He said, "What can I do you for?" She didn't really like his attitude, but what was she going to do? So, well, sir, I would like to maybe pawn something, a piece of jewelry, because this is my first Christmas with my husband, and I really want to buy him something nice. Here. So she handed him the ring, and he took it. Well, sweetie pie, it's missing a setting. She didn't care for sweetie pie either. It's not worth much to me without a setting in it. Well, I know that it's missing a setting, but look at the gold. It's 18 karat gold. Surely that's worth something. And you could probably find a semi-precious jewel to put in it, and you can make money. Come on. It's our first Christmas. It seemed like a look went over his face, like maybe he was sympathetic. But then his face hardened. He said, nope, sweetie, I can give you $10. $10? $10? That's nothing. Look, honey, I am not in the business of selling antiques. Well, she took a ring and left. Pretty discouraged, she walked up and down the street looking at other shops, wondering, are any of these going to be any good to me at all? When she noticed an antique store. She'd seen it before, but she might have been in there once. She walked to the front, and there in the glass cases, the glass windows, were some really nice antiques, some dishes, some antique toys, all kinds of things, really. and it was lighted up in there. It looked inviting, warm. Well, I got nothing to lose, she thought. In the door Della went. Now, when she stepped in the door, she didn't have to get her eyes adjusted because she could see quite well in there. This woman did not skimp on the electricity, apparently. She walked over to the cases and was browsing around and saw that, in fact, there was jewelry in those cases. As she was looking through, a woman came from a back room and into the main shop, and she was a cute little woman, little white-haired, 60-something woman, rosy cheeks and no warts. No, I had to throw that in. It was just a joke. But she was really a sweet-looking woman, and she smiled bigly. She said, "Merry Christmas. How can I help you?" She was so warm and friendly that Della, who had just been on the edge of emotional breakdown for this whole thing, started to cry and spilled her guts and told her everything that had happened and what she was trying to do. When she was through, the woman said, "Well, let me see that ring you're talking about." So she handed her the ring. The woman looked at it. It is quite lovely. And I'm pretty sure I have some gems that I could put in that. Now, what was it you wanted? Was it a fob chain for your husband's watch? Yes, right. Do you have any of those here? I think I do. So the woman went back behind the counter and setting the ring down, she began to rummage around, pulled out a little case, set it on the top of the counter. Della opened it and looked. It was the perfect fob chain, gold, just as she had imagined. Well, go ahead, look at it, pick it up. So she picked it up, and as she was looking at that beautiful handiwork, she couldn't help but notice the price tag. It was way more than she was probably going to get for $11.87 and whatever that ring was worth. Well, it's lovely, but thank you. I don't think I can afford this. You don't, huh? Well, I'm in a business of bartering. We do that down here. We don't just sell, we barter. And I like that ring. I think I can make something out of it. How about we do an even trade? Your ring for this fob chain. Are you serious? Well, yes, I'm serious. Oh, yes, and thank you. The deal was done. Della couldn't believe her luck. The woman wrapped it up, gave it to her, and Della ran to the bus stop, caught the next bus home, and got upstairs as quickly as she could. When she got into the apartment, it was later in the afternoon by now, she immediately took some wrapping paper, wrapped it up, put it under the tree so it would be there when Jim came home from work. And she looked around and thought, well, I can clean up a little bit, and I'm going to turn the Christmas lights on. She did a little more decorating for Christmas. He still wasn't home, but then he was going to work late because he was making deliveries on Christmas Eve. So she went in the kitchen and started his favorite meal, which, simple, was chili, but he loved it. And so as she was cooking the chili, he finally came home. She heard him trudging heavily, slowly up the stairs. And then the door flew open. Their cat, who had been out all day, shot in and went straight to the kitchen. And in came Jim. There he was, standing in his brown UPS uniform, looking a bit peaked around the edges, pretty worn out. But he flung open his arms and he said, "Ho, ho, ho, Merry Christmas. Come here and give me a hug." And so she did. Jim, I am so excited about the present I have for you. I want to give it to you right away. Can we exchange gifts before we eat dinner? Well, sure, honey. Let me change. So he went and he changed clothes and got cleaned up. And she turned on the radio to play a little Christmas music. And they sat on the sofa there in their little living room. And when they sat down, then they became shy all of a sudden. They'd been dating for a while, but they'd only been married 5 months. This was their very first Christmas, just the two of them. Well, they got beyond their shyness, and Della said, I want you to open your gift first. Here. And she handed it to him. He said, all right, I will. So he slowly, carefully took the bow off and took the paper off like he wanted to save every last bit of it, set it aside. She said, come on, open it up. He opened it up. And he had a really peculiar look on his face. Jim, don't you like it? It's a fob chain for your pocket watch. Now you can carry it safely and show it off to everybody. Oh yeah, Della, I like it. I like it a lot. Really, I do. But I got to tell you, I sold the pocket watch so I could get your gift. Oh no. She thought she was going to cry all over again, but she didn't. And he said, come on, open your gift. I know you're going to love it. So he handed her a little box. It looked like a jewelry box. She opened it up, flipped the lid. It was embedded or nestled in cotton, a beautiful ruby, just the perfect size for her ring, her grandmother's ring. Jim, you and I are so foolish. I pawned the ring so I could get the fob for your watch. Now, neither one of us has anything for Christmas. Jim leaned back on the sofa, laughed. You know what, Della? There'll be more Christmases. And who knows? Maybe we can make the money and buy those things back. But right now, I smell something really good. What are you making? Chili. My favorite. So they had a nice evening after all together with their first Christmas. The Magi, remember them in the Bible story? They are known to be wise men. And as wise men, when they went to visit the babe in the manger, they took gifts. In fact, they started the tradition of Christmas gift giving. And seeing that they are wise, why they probably gave just the right kind of gift, and maybe even something that could be exchanged if it wasn't suitable. But these two young people, these two 20-somethings, they had taken their most prized possession and sold it to buy the other one what they thought they wanted. To the wise of today, of our age, I say, they were not foolish, but they were indeed the wisest of all. And anybody who gives from their heart and sacrifices is wise. Any of you and any of us. We are the Magi.